Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. I'm Jed Bradley. I'm the Executive Director of FPB's Policy Planning and State Operations Group. Thank you in advance for attending, and thanks in advance for your partnership during the upcoming session. We really couldn't do this work without you. I wanted to start by publicly congratulating our new State Relations Director, Morgan Hickel. We've been working with her for a few years, and she will be now leading the State Relations portion of the presentation today, now that Joe has taken over for Randy Hodgins as VP of External Affairs. And on my end, for the first time in a decade of legislative kickoffs, I'm going to pass the torch to Christine, who's going to cover all of the substantive content for me today. So special thanks to her as well. A couple housekeeping things. I think I saw some stuff in the chat, but this presentation is being recorded. We'll post it on the FPB website after the event. In terms of questions, please just raise your hand while folks are talking. Put questions in the chat. We'll cover during or after each section. And then if after the presentation you have any lingering questions or need any additional help, don't hesitate to reach out to our team. We can set up a quick chat in the next few days or handle things over email. Couple new faces here on our policy planning and state operations team. We're thrilled to have Alex join us as our new policy analyst, and Tasia is our new student policy intern for this upcoming year. Here is our FPB team that you'll be hearing from this year. Just a few quick notes about our role throughout the legislative session. So as usual, we will produce budget briefs for major budget proposals. We'll talk more about those later. The governor's budget was released last month, and we have a brief up about that. FPB tracks all bills relevant to the university and coordinates efforts with state relations and medicine, who are on the ground in Olympia. We coordinate responses to fiscal notes, which you will also hear about later. And we respond to a wide variety of data and other policy questions from the governor's office, the legislature, even our own administration and staff. So we could get in touch with you for help with any one of those things. So just stay tuned and please watch out for emails from our team. In terms of specific roles, I'm the primary contact for the team for any general questions. I'm happy to point you to the right person if you aren't sure who to ask. Christine leads the policy and state operations team. She'll be leading fiscal note assignments and review and approval of those. She'll be leading capital budget analysis, and she's the primary contact for the team, especially if I'm out or if I don't give you the answer you're looking for. Lauren is our resident expert on LobbyGov and operating budget analysis. She'll be reviewing and tracking House bills and helping with fiscal notes and information requests. Alex will be reviewing and tracking Senate bills and helping with fiscal notes and information requests. And Tasia, our student intern, will be maintaining LobbyGov, sending bill updates when bills are moving or changing, helping with information requests and anything else that we need during session. As usual, our session has never been successful without our favorite policy analysts. With Michael's departure to a new role at the Department of Revenue, Alex joined us with two cats, so we are now in a what some would call a dog deficit, but I would call the right balance. So with that, I will pass it off to Lauren, who's our resident expert on bill tracking and LobbyGov.
I am very upset about the dog deficit. That's my background. We have doves, so maybe it's equal. Good morning, everybody. I'm Lauren Hatchett. I'm a senior policy analyst here in FPB. If you've reviewed legislation with us before, provided feedback to our team, this part of the presentation should be a good refresh. If this is your first time tracking legislation, if you've never read a bill before, this presentation might take you back to like your high school civics class. So it should be fun. I'm going to cover the Washington State legislative process, bill analysis, and how to provide feedback using LobbyGov. We always start this presentation with reminding you why this work matters. Legislative decisions affect higher education policy, UW operations, healthcare policy, and so many other things. Bill tracking and analysis provides a crucial opportunity to provide feedback on policies that will affect the UW. And it's critical that the experts have a say in these decisions in order to ensure that they have the desired effect, that they're implementable by the UW, and they benefit our UW community. I also like to start this presentation with just a few important terms that we use throughout the legislative session and that you'll definitely hear from us. So I'm just going to read this slide. The House of Origin, or the first house, is the chamber in which a piece of legislation originates. This can be the House or the Senate. The opposite house, or the second house, is the second chamber through which a piece of legislation moves. Substitute bill, you might see that. It often is abbreviated with an S in front. So in this one, it's a substitute Senate bill or substitute House bill. It's a new version of the bill that completely replaces the original version. A striking amendment, or a striker, is an amendment that also removes everything and inserts an entirely new bill. Engrossed, this is legislation that simply it's into which one or more amendments have been incorporated and then has passed a chamber. A quick run through the legislative process. I wish it was this quick. We always start with the bill introduction in either the Senate or the House, which is introduced by a member. It's then referred to a committee. The committee then reads the bill and they may decide to hold a public hearing, which is essentially an opportunity for stakeholders to voice their support or their concerns. This is when somebody from the state relations team or a campus expert is most likely to provide feedback. The committee can then hold an executive session in which they will vote to pass, reject, or amend the bill. If passed out of committee, the bill may go to the floor for a vote. At this point, the full membership of the House or the Senate, whatever the House of Origin the bill is coming from, they can choose to pass, reject, or amend it. After passing the House of Origin, the bill goes through the same procedure in the opposite House, and we essentially restart the process. I'll let Jed click the fancy animation. Thanks. If amendments are made in the opposite house, the House of Origin it goes through the same process again. If there are amendments made in the opposite house, the House of Origin must approve the changes and work to reconcile. When a bill is accepted in both houses, the governor hopefully signs the bill into law, or he may veto all or part of it. In this process, your bill assessments are reviewed by our team and shared with the state relations team. So if you ever have feedback that you don't feel comfortable putting into LobbyGov or over email or in writing in any form, just feel free to call any member from our team. Okay, now that we've got the basics down, we're ready to analyze legislation. And the first step is to read. Don't underestimate this step. It's very important. If you're working with an analyst on our team, we always include a direct link to the bill's homepage on the legislature's website. The homepage looks something like this, and it provides a fair amount of information. Feel free to explore the actual bill text, or explore this page, but the actual bill text can be found closer to the bottom of the page, so you'll want to scroll down. At the bottom of the homepage, you'll see all of the available documents. Under bill documents, you will see a variety of bill versions. Please make sure that you're reading the correct version of the bill. In addition, there is a bill report section, and this provides comprehensive summaries for each bill version. They're super helpful, but because they're prepared by legislative committee staff, but it still doesn't replace actually reading the bill text. Assuming that you've clicked on the right version or the current version of the bill, we can start reading. Unfortunately, this example of a bill only exists in my dream world, and it's an act relating to the eligibility of the State Medal of Merit. As you're reading bills, here are a few things to keep in mind. The first thing you'll notice with this example is that Section 1 is a new section. This indicates that all the language in this section is new, and it's important to read the entirety of this section. As you read through the first section of any bill, you may notice that there's a definite tone here, but not always. But the first section of a bill is kind of a preamble where the legislature states their current understandings of an issue and identifies their intention for why they're writing the bill in the first place. The intent is usually at the very end, like the last paragraph. And in this example, we can see that the legislature intends to recognize the contributions of live mascots by expanding the eligibility of the State Medal of Merit. As we move to section 2, we see at the top what RCW is being amended. This RCW establishes the State Medal of Merit. As you're reading, you'll want to keep an eye out for struck out text, which indicates that language is being removed from existing code, and any underlined text indicates that new language is being added to the code. So in this example, person is struck, and entity, including individuals or live mascots, is added. Thanks. I wish all bills were just 2 sections, but if you're still following along, this bill assessment should be pretty easy to sum up. Your bill review might say this bill would expand eligibility for the State Medal of Merit so that one day Dubs might receive this high honor. Okay, after you've read the bill, first, try to remember not just to hit reply in your email and email your analyst with your initial thoughts about the bill. Bill analysis happens in LobbyGov, and members of our team will remind you of this. Many of you might be familiar with LobbyGov, but as a quick refresher, LobbyGov is a platform used extensively in bill analysis and legislative affairs in our state. It notifies our team when tracked legislation has a hearing, when it is amended, when it moves, and additionally, LobbyGov enables our university community to assess legislation throughout the process. University partners who have been asked to review legislation can access LobbyGov at uw.lobbygov.com using your UW-Net ID to log in. If for whatever reason you just go to lobbygov.com and log in, you're going to want to use the SAML login so that you may use your UW-Net ID to log in. You can go to the next slide, Jed. If you're assigned a bill in LobbyGov, you'll receive the following email. This is our auto email. Hopefully it doesn't go to your spam folder, but this email will notify you that you have a new bill assignment, and you can log in to LobbyGov directly from this email. If for some reason you miss the email or you forget to provide an assessment by the date your bill review is due, a member of our team will probably email you a couple days before just to remind you, the very gentle reminder to provide feedback in LobbyGov. After you log into LobbyGov with your UW-Net ID, you see a page that kind of looks something like this. In LobbyGov, we have the to-do list, which shows any bills that are pending review. And you want to make sure that you are viewing the 69th session. We're in the second half of the 69th session. This shows from left to right that the Senate bill has been assigned to me. There's no companion bill. I can see the bill status. I see the abbreviated title for quick reference. And it looks like I was supposed to review this bill last year, but why not review it now? To review the bill, you just click Review Bill. After selecting Review Bill, you see a page like this, and then in the top left-hand corner, you can select the Legislative Bill page. That just takes you to the legislature's website, where you can review any documents that might be posted. You can also see if anyone else at the UW is assigned to this bill and read any analysis that they may have provided. So in this example, I went back into LobbyGov and I just assigned an example department and also assigned other reviewers to this bill. So if you saw something like this, other departments are assigned to this bill or other reviewers, you can click on any of these to see if they've provided any analysis. Even if they haven't provided analysis, it might be helpful if you want to connect with these departments or with these reviewers offline or over Teams just to get a sense of where their head is before you review the bill. Uh, Providing assessments. I'll say any feedback is usually helpful, but there's definitely good and not so good assessments that we see. A helpful assessment provides a detailed summary on what the bill does and how it changes current policy. It summarizes how the change would affect the UW, and it recommends a position and a priority. By contrast, a less helpful assessment is limited and doesn't assess the impact of the bill. It indicates concerns and recommends a high priority, but it doesn't detail what those concerns are. It doesn't offer any amendments to alleviate those concerns, and it doesn't offer any helpful rationale for opposition. If you do write an assessment like this, you will definitely get a call from our office just asking for additional information to help us understand why you made that assessment in the first place. The worst kind of assessment, though, is no assessment provided at all. A number of folks love to track legislation just to track it. Just tell us you want to track it to monitor it. That is feedback. All right. We'll get into like what assessments look like in LobbyGov. So when you're assigned a bill in LobbyGov, we typically ask you to respond to 4 standard prompts. In the next few slides, we have a few examples of assessments that we wrote, and they range from helpful to concerning to confusing. But just as an FYI, we're recording this presentation. We'll share this presentation so you can read these on our website. The first 2 prompts are pretty standard. We just want you to assess the impact of a bill and provide any suggested amendments. Our third prompt asks that you consider the bill within the context of the UW's diversity blueprint goals. So, for example, if a bill would mandate new reporting requirements for all the public meetings that take place on each campus here at the university, your first thought might be, wow, there are a lot of public meetings that take place on all the campuses every month. That's going to be really expensive to do reports for every single one. We don't disagree. We just want to challenge you to think beyond the obvious cost and consider, are there any benefits or consequences that are outside of those costs? So for this, you might think whether increased reporting may lead to improvements in accountability and transparency, or goal number 6, or are more reports just more sludge, and is it more of a burden? We want to know that too. If you have any questions about how to assess potential equity impacts of a piece of legislation, please feel free to reach out to anybody on our team. I should also just say that it's totally fine to respond and say, I can't think of anything at this time, but if you do later, we'd love to hear it. All right. And then the 4th prompt is intended just to be a catch-all question. So if there's anything you think that we need to know about, read my notes, about this bill, just let us know here, or if you'd like to call us or write an email, that works too. Overall, I think this assessment that we're looking at is like short and to the point. I'd probably reach out to understand the position and priority, as it is concerns high. But I'll just note that lots of people will put in like, this is the highest priority for your team. I don't disagree. We just want to understand why it's a high priority, because we're reviewing hundreds of bills and not every bill can be the highest priority. All right. Our next assessment, I can tell that this person put a lot of thought into their review. We read every bill, at least the first section of every bill, to make sure that it applies to us. But there's no way that we can remember every bill. So in a bill review, when I read an overview and identified sections that I should pay attention to, it's super helpful to kind of jog my memory. Uh, there are identified potential amendments in this assessment, which is great. If it comes up with state relations, we can point them directly to those sections. And then I also appreciate how this bill is marked neutral low. Not every bill, like I said before, can be a high priority, but if this particular bill did take off in Olympia, we have a great starting point to help the state relations team form a position on this and help us move the bill forward. Finally, we have a review that is lacking and concerning. Um, some things to note here. If we see an assessment that notes that this bill would have significant and negative impacts on the UW and that we should oppose the bill, but doesn't let us know any more information, uh, we're definitely going to call you to try to understand what's going on here. This example is like totally exaggerated, but we do see reviews that leave us wanting more. And a lot of reviews that have an opposition position and a higher priority. So just want to note that. To my next slide. At the bottom of the bill review page, you will just be asked to recommend a position and priority. We definitely are most interested in high priority bills, but I would think about a high priority bill as having a significant or positive, or sorry, a significant positive or negative impact on the university. These bills will necessitate the highest attention from our team and the state relations team. And typically, these impacts, fiscal impacts, are greater than $1 million in any given fiscal year. Most bills, though, will meet the medium to monitoring priority levels, and those are totally fine too. We monitor all the bills. You can find guidance for selecting a position and priority on our bill tracking and legislative resources page. After you complete your bill review, just click yes that you've completed it and save your review so that we are alerted that you've completed your review. When you are reviewing bills, please ask yourself, what does the bill add or remove from existing law? Does the bill have a fiscal, programmatic, or operational impact? What amendments would you recommend? And again, just remember that you're the experts in your field. Your explanation of feasibility and the specific impacts of a proposed bill truly steers if and how the state relations team approaches the bill in Olympia. In general, just please remember to be clear and concise. Note any areas of confusion, provide some education to us, give us a sense of importance and scale, pay attention to the version of the bill that you're responding to, and please respond as soon as possible is preferable to us. If you have any questions or run into any issues, please feel free to reach out to anybody on our team. As I mentioned, we have many resources on our bill tracking and legislative resources page, which can be found on our new website. We have since moved our OPB website to the finance website, so we're now at finance.uw.edu/ppso. But if you navigate to our old website, you'll just be redirected, so don't worry too much about that. And with that, does anybody have any questions? All right.
Hi, Lauren. It's Dana Rygrodsky. I'm not sure if you can see me with the slide share. I'm the deputy
Yeah.
FLR. Yeah, I'm the deputy FLR. So I'm curious, with this being a short session, I mean, obviously we have some of the rollovers, and then we have some of the kind of the newer ones. Generally, how many bills, I guess you're estimating that you think we'll be tracking? How many of those would be like the really big, impactful one, and how many you think will be just the monitoring medium one? Just out of curiosity for time allocation and all of those thoughts.
In any given set, like total bills, especially in a second session, I think about the total number of bills. We'll track like 700 to 800 bills. The majority are monitoring. And it is, they're on our radar. We really rely on the folks who are providing bill review assessments to let us know if they ever rise above the level uh, of medium priority. So, but yeah, I would say I couldn't put a percentage to it, but the majority are monitoring.
Thank you.
Great. I know there will be opportunities for more questions as we move on, but I'm going to pass it off to Christine to talk about fiscal notes.
Thank you, Lauren. Okay, so we'll move now to talking about fiscal notes, updates and reminders. We've already been getting fiscal notes, so some of you are already having to deal with some of this. So I'm going to start with a kind of big picture sense of what fiscal notes are, just in case you're new to this, or it's been a while, or you just need a refresher about why this is actually important and why we keep pestering you about fiscal notes if you have already gotten those pestering emails. So a fiscal note is an estimate of a bill's fiscal impact. It's specifically a 6-year projection of the fiscal impact for UW. So in this case, for this year, we're looking at the fiscal impact of a bill from FY 2026 to FY 2031. And a fiscal note is the least expensive way to reasonably implement a bill. So it's not necessarily our dream way to implement a bill, which is often the more expensive way, but the least expensive way we can implement the bill within the spirit of the bill language. It's also tied to a specific version of a bill. Obviously session hasn't even started yet. We're early in the fiscal note process. So right now, if you get a fiscal note, it'll most likely be the original version of a bill. But as session goes on, you'll start to get fiscal notes for substitutes and gross substitutes. And in those cases, we're thinking about the fiscal impact of that particular version. So any changes we saw in the original, as well as how those changes have evolved through the substitute, and so on. That might sound a little bit confusing, but don't worry, we'll always do our best to provide guidance when we send out those fiscal note requests, and we can always answer questions you have about that. And fiscal notes are super important for a variety of reasons. They help legislators evaluate a bill's costs and merits, which, especially in this current budget environment with very little money to go around, is extra important. So we want to be as accurate as we can possibly be. And it informs legislative staff, journalists, lobbyists, etc., about, again, a bill's costs, so they can kind of think about that cost benefit analysis. Next slide, please. So these are really important because, again, they inform legislative decisions. It's really important that legislators know if a bill is going to be too expensive to implement or if it's going to be realistic to implement. We don't want to be on the line for something that is sort of impossible for us to implement with current resources and have no funding to do so. So we need to be responsive and we need to be accurate. And this is really tricky because we have less than 72 hours to respond to fiscal notes. So of course, that can sometimes mean we're doing our best estimates, and we'll give some tips for how to kind of respond in that short time frame. But it's also tricky because these fiscal notes cover a huge variety of topics. And we as policy analysts can't know every single thing, can't be a subject matter expert on every single area we get fiscal notes on. We get them for the hospitals, for facilities, for academic departments, HR, so many places. So this is where we really need your help as subject matter experts to help us understand the costs and to communicate those effectively in our fiscal notes. So this is the process we'll go through with fiscal notes. We'll receive a request from the Office of Financial Management for a fiscal note for a bill. We as analysts will read through the bill. We'll often, as long as we have time, do our best to do kind of a first assessment of the impact, what's going on, what we think the cost might be. And then we'll send it to subject matter experts, our assessors, you all, who will also review the bill. If we've provided any draft language, review that draft language, and update the narratives, the Excel templates we provide with your assessment of the impact of the bill fiscally, and then outline any cost drivers. And I'll get into an example of that in a moment. You'll then send it back to us. We'll review it, make sure we have all the information we need, and submit that fiscal note to the Office of Financial Management. Again, we have less than 72 hours to respond, so this is a very tight timeline. So to respond to a fiscal note request, we first ask that you read the email that we send to you. Do note the due date. We'll often bold it or we'll highlight it. We'll try to make it obvious. And this is so helpful. Please respond to let us know you're working on it. We get so many fiscal note requests. Session hasn't even started. We already have 11 fiscal notes we're working on that are due in the next few days. So we tend to panic a little bit. At least I tend to panic a little bit if I haven't heard from anybody and it's due tomorrow. So to save you from having to respond to my panicky emails, please just send a note and just say, yep, on it, don't worry about it. Then read the bill for how it impacts the UW. We as analysts will do our best to include everybody on the fiscal note we think might be relevant, but know if we have forgotten, because we make mistakes, we're humans, if we've forgotten to loop anybody in who you think might be important, make sure to coordinate your response with those people, loop in others as needed, and please let us know if we forgot people so that next time we can make sure to include them as well. So if you're at Seattle, we've sent it to a Seattle person, you notice we've forgotten your Bothell and Tacoma counterparts, you might think about that. You might think about other units that might be involved. We'll send you a SharePoint link for a narrative template and an Excel template. So you'll use those SharePoint links to draft your fiscal notes. There will be a lot of guidance on those. And then once you've filled them out, either just respond to the email, say, I'm done, this is back to you, or you can use the at function in SharePoint, comment us so that we can then go in and make sure that we do our review and submit it on time. So in terms of what those templates actually look like, for the narrative template, there's a summary. This is a pretty brief overview of how the bill would impact UW, or sometimes why it wouldn't. Sometimes we get assigned fiscal notes and we're like, we don't know why we got this. This doesn't impact us. So we'll note that in the summary. And then there will generally be one or more of the following areas of impact that you will also be filling out. The first one is cash receipts. This is basically money flowing into the university. So if we have a bill that, say, increases tuitions and fees, that would be positive cash receipts for the university. If we have a fiscal note or a bill that decreases tuition and fees or it increases taxes, that might mean decreasing money going into the university. So there would be negative cash receipts. So basically, if it affects the flow of money into the university, you might fill out that cash receipt section. This can be a little confusing. We'll do our best to point that out when that's relevant. The most common section to fill out is the expenditure section. This is when there are costs to implement a bill. Oftentimes there might be FTE involved with implementing a bill. Sometimes there might be training, goods and services, travel, etc. And then, especially if you're in facilities, the capital section might be relevant to you. This is where we're filling out expenditures and FTEs that are related to capital costs, such as pre-design, design, construction, grants, loans, and other costs. This is what this might look like for an example bill. This is a very dated bill, but this is a real one that would establish the Pesticide Application Safety Committee. And in this case, would involve the work of a director at UW. And so we have our summary section where we briefly summarize what this bill would do. And then in the expenditures section, we go section by section for the bill that has costs for UW, and we talk about what those costs would be. Like Lauren mentioned, we'll be posting this presentation, the link, so you can read through it if you're super, super interested. But the key here is that in this section, we're outlining that if we have a committee somebody's participating in, we have to account for their time to participate in it, which involves their salary and their benefits. And we have some travel costs as well to participate in a committee that perhaps meets in Olympia. Next slide, please. And then we have our Excel template. This is where these costs will be included in a much more kind of consolidated framework. We have all of these categories outlined for you. You can see this is a dated example. If you were to get this Excel template this year, it would be for FY26 to FY31. But you would put in the salaries and wages for 0.02 FTE to participate in this committee, employee benefits, and then those travel costs. And we can also help you with how you put these numbers in, as long as you know the annual salary and the benefits rates and how much FTE is involved. We can help you with those calculations as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. So sometimes there are a lot of unknowns. I should say a lot of times there are a lot of unknowns with a bill and its fiscal impact. And so if there are a lot of unknowns, please feel free to talk to us sooner rather than later to discuss those unknowns. You can also put those in the narrative, be clear about any assumptions we might be making. In some cases, we might think about putting scalable costs. So if we say there's a program that would impact students, we might not know how many students partake in the program, but we might say, here's scalable costs, here's the cost for each student that participates. So that might be one option. Giving just your best estimate is also helpful. And then worst case scenario, but something that happens a lot, sometimes we just have to do an indeterminate fiscal note. There are just too many unknowns. We want to avoid this when possible because indeterminate fiscal notes rarely get funding. The legislature obviously doesn't know how much money to give us for it, but sometimes that's inevitable. So just some tips and reminders. Fiscal notes take priority over general bill analysis in LobbyGov because of that 72-hour turnaround. So please respond as soon as possible, loop in others as needed. Like I mentioned, avoid indeterminate responses if possible. Explain why something is no fiscal impact if it is no fiscal impact. Write for a general audience. Remember that you are a subject matter expert, and the people reading these are legislators who have very little time and probably little background in the specific bill. So avoid jargon, spell out acronyms, identify and explain any assumptions you're making. We want to make sure calculations are repeatable, logic is clear. Make sure you're reporting the bill's incremental impact over current law. So if we already have to do something, we're thinking about any additional changes to that. Identify costs and receipts as one time or ongoing. So if a committee is only meeting for 1 year, we'll identify that as kind of a one-time cost versus if they're meeting on an ongoing basis. Consider implementation dates. So if a committee won't start to meet until FY28, you won't put those costs as starting until FY28. I should have also mentioned with these fiscal notes, we don't incorporate inflation. So make sure you're not inflating those numbers as well. For additional staff time, we need their title, full-time annual salary, benefits rate classification, and percent FTE. And then we can do those calculations that I showed in that Excel file. And remember, we just need your estimates and best guesses. So do your best. We will remind you of these things if we notice there are any issues with the fiscal note. So this is a lot of information, but keep in mind we'll be helping you through it. And you can find more information on our website in the fiscal notes section that is circled there. Any questions? I see there are some in the comments, but yes, Steve.
Thanks. I have a question on the staff time. In the example you gave with the professor and the salary, it was 0.02 of their time, right? So are you asking for essentially what is the cost of the level of effort as opposed to like we're going to actually pay that person 0.02 more, right? Like I sort of infer in that example, we're not actually paying that professor that additional money. They're just absorbing that into their work, but we're just conveying the burden, I guess, that the university is absorbing. Is that, do I have that right?
That's a great question. Yeah, so I mean, it will depend. Sometimes there's a level of work at which it would require us to hire somebody new. Or sometimes something costs like half an FTE or 0.75 of an FTE. And so we'll still reflect that based on who this person would, what the title would be, what their salary would be, what the FTE would be. And sometimes it will be at a low enough level for a position to absorb with what they're already doing. Sometimes, again, it will require hiring people, and that's where we need to be really clear about the FTE so that ideally, if we need funding, if we need to hire somebody, the state's helping provide that funding. Of course, sometimes they do not, and then we have to figure that out. But it sort of both can be true, if that makes sense.
Okay, so I guess I'm hearing you say we're documenting the cost of the level of effort, even if we might absorb that level of effort without hiring.
Exactly. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's see, I see some responses to the questions in the comments. So I'll just assume for now that those are answered and just for time move to the legislative session and budget, but I can come back to any questions I've missed. Okay. So we're starting a short session. Short sessions happen in even years. They last 60 days with the possibility of one or more 30-day special sessions. Fingers crossed that does not happen, but we'll see. So this year's session starts on January 12th and it will go until March 12th. Supplemental budgets and supplemental sessions are usually our opportunity to course correct. So what I mean by that, last year, the legislature came out with their biennial budget for 2025 to 2027. And so in supplemental sessions, the legislature is especially focusing on FY27, to a lesser extent FY26, and they're thinking about how has revenue changed, how have cash flows and caseloads changed, do we need to make any adjustments based on that? And then as a result, if revenues are lower, caseloads are higher, that's kind of the case that we're seeing right now. They'll be thinking about additional budget cuts, additional revenue generation, things like that. In terms of bill introductions, we see bill introductions start as a numerical progression from when they ended last year at the end of the 2025 session. We see both a lot of new bills that are introduced, but we see quite a few bills that were introduced last year that just didn't get passed. We call them zombie bills if they're bills that are still alive from last year. And so you might see some of these where we'll tell you if it's a bill that came out last year and we remember, that you can just kind of copy and paste your analysis from previously. So in terms of what we're seeing this year, for the budget, the Economic and Revenue Forecast Council released their latest revenue forecast in November. There was some good news and some bad news. Their total state revenue projections were increased by $105.4 million in the current biennium for 25 to 27, but they were decreased by $184.9 million in the next biennium. Overall, these are minor changes, 0.1%. But when we look at all the forecasts since the end of the legislative session, we're seeing slight declines in the revenue forecast for both this biennium and for next biennium. And this is tough given that last year was such a hard budget year. Any additional changes we have to make are just going to be that much harder because they've already made so many tough decisions. On top of that, we have changing caseloads, and so what we're currently looking at is a budget deficit of about $2.3 billion. So we are expecting to see some budget cuts. Indeed, Governor Ferguson released his budget proposal for the 2026 supplemental operating and capital budget in December. At a high level, he would cut base state funding to the UW by 3%, or $15.8 million per year starting in FY27. He would cut administrative spending by $3.5 million beginning in FY27. On the positive side, he did include ongoing funding for the Center for Behavioral Health and Learning, though he wouldn't provide any other policy level funding. And for the capital budget, he did not include funding for the power plant electrification and hot water loop, which is an important part of our decarbonization efforts, and would not change authorized salary increases of 2% in FY27 in the underlying biennial budget. As an important reminder, just because the governor has released his budget proposal doesn't mean that will be what we end up seeing as the final compromise. The leadership in the House and the Senate will release their own budget proposals. They'll negotiate. That will result in the compromise. So it's too soon to tell what we'll end up seeing by the end of session. We will be reviewing these budgets as they're released, and we'll produce budget briefs for all major budget proposals. So stay tuned for those, and you can find that in our website as well. Okay, so now I will turn it over to Morgan.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see all of you. For those of you who I haven't met, I'm Morgan Hickel. I'm the new Director of State Relations at the university. Thanks for all the love at the beginning. And I want to start by saying today, thank you to everyone who does complete bill analysis, fiscal notes, or is on call as a subject matter expert during session. Your support is really crucial to our team's work and UW's advocacy efforts. So please know that we're very appreciative of your partnership. We know sometimes it can be a bit of a fire drill, but it's a team effort and we really appreciate you. So thank you. Before I get started, I do want to just highlight, speaking of teams, I'd like to introduce our new State Relations Associate Director, Kevin Chang. Kevin, if you could just give a wave, say hello to everyone. He is on his third or I think fourth week now, so he's jumping straight into the deep end, and so far is just handling it like a pro. So I'm very thrilled to have him on board, and know he looks forward to working with all of you. And when you meet him officially, please give him a warm welcome. We also have a familiar face on our team, Jordan Karen. And I'm seeing our partners from UW-Tacoma and Bothell as well, Ryan and Courtney. So again, this is really a team effort. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your partnership as well. I'm seeing a question. Nope, okay. So today I realize we are short on time, so I'm going to try and move pretty quickly. I'll give you an overview of what is lobbying and how to legally and impactfully engage with state government as UW employee. And I'll also walk through just briefly the upcoming session and our legislative agenda. This will be high level, so if you do have any questions or want to dig in further, our contact information will be at the end, and don't hesitate to reach out to us. So what is lobbying? And I will say that this is state level lobbying. There are different rules at the federal level. So lobbying involves making an ask. So you are asking a legislator or their staff to act or not act on either policy or funding. So you're asking for funding, or you're asking them to support a bill. Those would be examples of lobbying. It includes both elected officials and their staff. So for senators and representatives, they have legislative assistants. If you meet with them, that is also considered lobbying. There's also various modalities in which you can lobby. You can do it in person or in committee hearings, but you can also do it over Zoom. You know, we are now a very virtual world, and so that is becoming more and more common. It is regulated and enforced by the Washington State Public Disclosure Commission, the PDC. And I'll get into that a little bit more on the next slide. And then the UW also has an administrative policy. There we go. UW also has an administrative policy statement that governs how UW employees can engage. And a lot of it is just kind of copied from what the PDC rules are. So what can you do? How can you engage with state government? I do want to know, it's always important to note that you have, as you know, as a resident of Washington, you have a right to engage in the political process. So you're welcome to engage in the political process as a private individual on personal time using personal resources. You can even use your UW affiliation if it's clear you're not speaking on behalf of the UW. Now, when we get into using public resources, that's when the kind of lobbying rules and regulations take effect. And we'll get into that more on the next slide. You're also welcome to educate state officials on university work and programs, or serve as an expert on policy. We do a lot of amazing things at the university. We have a lot of really smart people, much smarter than me, and you're absolutely allowed to share about all of the great things you do, and support in educating lawmakers and the public on various topics. So that is totally allowable and not considered lobbying. You are also allowed to respond to direct requests for information. So sometimes legislators or their staff will reach out and say, hey, I saw this really awesome research report you did. Can you tell me more? Can I meet with you to discuss this? Totally allowable. You are also welcome to lobby on behalf of UW using university resources, but you have to do it in coordination with our office. And we have to report that activity and expenditures used for that. And then if you're engaging with an elected official, a state level elected official, we just ask that you let our office know. Our aim is really to make sure that your engagement is lawful and also impactful. And honestly, sometimes legislators, they reach out to us directly with questions or for follow-up. So if we're aware of the conversations that are happening, it helps save some headaches for everyone if they reach out directly to us instead of reconnecting with you. So what does lobbying on behalf of the UW look like? So the UW is a public agency. Because we're a public agency, we receive public funds. Advocacy with public funds is strictly governed and must be reported to the PDC. So again, that PDC is kind of the force that governs all of lobbying. And the reporting and the rules that we must follow, those are in law. As I mentioned, you are welcome to lobby on behalf of the UW, but we're only allowed to advocate on official UW business. And official UW business, that official business is actually in the law. And so what is that? That is typically our legislative agenda that we have every year for every session. And if you're curious what's on our legislative agenda, feel free to check it out on our website, UW State Relations. But it's also our official policy position. So for those of you who do review bills or complete fiscal notes, you're helping us form our official policy position. So you're part of that process. And then, as I mentioned, we just must report all lobbying activities and expenditures quarterly to the PDC via our office. So you as individual UW employees are responsible for individually reporting what activities you're doing and what those expenditures are. And then our team takes all of that information, compiles it, and submits it to the PDC. And then again, we just ask if you're going to lobby on behalf of the UW to coordinate with our office. It helps to ensure compliance with state laws. It helps to ensure that our advocacy is aligned. We don't have 100 people saying 100 different things and confusing legislators. And it also helps to ensure that your engagement is impactful. Again, this is a team effort, and we want to help make sure that you're advocating in a way that gets across to legislators. Okay, so if you do lobby on behalf of the UW or even as a private citizen, when you connect with legislators, here are some kind of general tips to think about, especially during session. This is kind of a focus during session, but in general, be early and flexible. Things during session, they change a lot. Things move really quickly. And so just be aware of that. If you're early, it allows more time to kind of change things if necessary. And sometimes legislators, their calendars change, and that happens. And so just go in knowing that. Be gracious. Legislators are people too. So please be respectful when you are connecting with them. And then be prepared and concise and use concrete examples. During session, meetings with legislators are 15 minutes max. And you're lucky if you get 15 minutes. So you got to be really on top of your talking points. You got to go in knowing what your agenda is. Legislators are also meeting with a lot of people. And they're usually meeting with them back to back. So make sure to use examples and stories that will stick with them. And then finally, if you don't know the answer to something, if you're in a meeting with the legislator, if you're in a committee hearing, and they ask you a question and you don't know the answer, don't come up with an answer. It's okay for you to say, hey, I don't know the answer, and we'll work with you to find the answer and follow up with that legislator. Okay, what are you not allowed to do as a UW employee? So we cannot use UW resources for grassroots lobbying. Grassroots lobbying typically includes a call to action. And an example of this would be sending an email with your UW email account, encouraging your colleagues or students or the public to reach out to Senator Harry Huskey to support Senate Bill 1234. That is not allowable, and we cannot use public resources for that. We also can't use public resources for political campaigns, ballot measures, so that would include initiatives, or any unofficial UW business. And this includes direct and indirect resources. So it's not just actual like money or cash, it is facilities, technology, emails, contact lists, branding, even time on the clock. Next one, please. So again, I know we are at time. I will try and be as quick as possible. If you have any questions about advocacy or what is allowed for lobbying or not, we have more information on our website, but you're also always welcome to reach out to our team and we'll provide some guidance. So 2026 session at a glance. I'll go through this quickly since Christine touched on it. A Democratic trifecta still exists in Olympia. So Democrats control both the governor and the House and Senate. And they have large majorities in both the House and Senate. It is a 60-day short session starting on Monday. So our team will turn into pumpkins and kind of move down to Olympia for session, and we are there 24/7 during session. As Christine mentioned, the focus will be on the supplemental budgets, and these budgets are not as robust as the biennial budgets, which are decided in odd numbered years during 105-day sessions. So supplemental budgets are really meant to adjust or apply fixes to the biennial budgets. And then as Christine mentioned, there is unfortunately an operating budget shortfall again this year. We know last year was extremely tough, and this year is going to be tough as well, but we will continue to do our best to kind of work through those circumstances. So what does our legislative agenda look like? On the operating budget side, recognizing that the state is entering a difficult budget year, the UW purposely is not advancing any new requests. We really want to focus on stabilizing our core operating funds and mitigating new cuts. We kind of need to focus on the bread and butter before we focus on anything new, regardless of how amazing, new ideas are. We just, we know we're making really tough decisions on our campuses and we need to stabilize that funding. So this year we will be really focused on sharing the impacts of state budget cuts on our campuses, and also sharing that, we have really strong student enrollment and we're serving more students than ever with fewer amount of dollars. And then this is not new, but something I just want to highlight. We are asking for funding for the Center for Behavioral Health and Learning for operating costs. This is the state's, this is a partnership between UW Medicine and the state, and we operate 75 long-term civil commitment beds there. We have received funding for that in the past, and this continues that funding. On the capital side, we are asking for $47.5 million from the climate commitment account for UW Seattle's power plant decarbonization efforts. This project was revamped from last session based off of legislator feedback, and it immediately reduces greenhouse gas emissions and supports compliance with the Climate Commitment Act and Clean Building Performance Standards. So that is our only capital request this year. Please and thank you. I'm finishing up here. When you're asked, complete legislative analysis, get your fiscal notes in on time. Be a problem solver. As I mentioned, we're all on one team. So let's continue rowing in the same direction. Be responsive. Session doesn't stop after 5 p.m. or on the weekends or on holidays. It is 60 continuous days. So our team works holidays and weekends, and we may need to call you if there's an emergency after hours. Again, please coordinate with us if you plan to visit Olympia or engage with an elected official. As I mentioned, oftentimes they'll say, hey, I met with this great person at the UW. I need this follow-up information. And if we don't know what the heck they're talking about, we can't help anybody. So please just reach out to us and we'll help get you connected in and make sure your outreach is impactful. And then if you need us, we are often, again, we are in Olympia 24/7 during sessions. So we're kind of running around, we're all over the place. So if you need us, do call or text us. Our contact information will be on the next page. And if you can't get in touch with me, call Kevin or Jordan. We're all on one team. And so we will make sure to get back to you as soon as we possibly can. And there's our contact information and our faces. I see that there are a lot of things in the chat. I'm also very happy to hang on for a little while and try and answer some of these questions. But as I mentioned, you're also welcome to reach out to me or Kevin or Jordan after this and talk through any details. Trying to see. It looks like most of the questions were answered in the chat. So
We handled everything in the chat. So does anybody have any?
awesome. Cool. Well, if you guys think of anything later, again, don't hesitate to reach out. We're very happy to answer questions about our agenda or how to lobby or what the heck the lobbying rules are. Awesome. Well, it's great seeing all of you. Thank you so much for being here today. And I look forward to working with you during session. I'm sure some of you will get panicked calls from us. So thank you ahead of time for your support. Bye all.
Thank you all.